This is The Last Laugh. I'm Matt Wilstein from The Daily Beast, and today on the show we have the brilliant mind behind one of my all-time favorite TV shows, BoJack Horseman. His new series is called Long Story Short, which I just devoured on Netflix and have not been able to stop thinking about since. Raphael Bob-Waksberg, welcome to The Last Laugh.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Oh, I'm glad that you get the energy up because I know you've been doing a lot of interviews, a lot of press. So I'm glad you're still feeling good.
I'm talking about one of my favorite topics, this TV show that I made.
Yeah,
so I'm happy.
I thought you were going to sing yourself, but
no, that's one of my
TV show.
Favorite topics. I really do not like how much I've had to do that during this press tour, but I do like talking about the show because it is a project that I'm very proud of, and I'm happy to share it with more people.
Well, I was looking back. We first met in San Francisco in January of 2016, which was quite a long time ago.
Yeah.
You were up here for SF Sketchfest for BoJack. And I was, at that point, I was just up here visiting and I was living in LA. And I have since become a Bay Area resident. So I feel like I entered your world.
Yeah. Welcome to it.
Yeah, thank you. BoJack was a very LA show in a lot of ways. I feel like Long Story Short is both more personal, but also very Bay Area oriented. It takes place.
The NorCal vibe.
Yeah, NorCal vibe. Did you feel like you wanted to make something closer to home in that sense, or your original home of like Bay Area?
Yeah, LA is also my home.
Right.
I live in Los Angeles County now, but I grew up in the Bay Area. I grew up in Palo Alto, and I like my work to feel well observed and real in a sense. As real as a show about a talking horse can be. And I've only lived in so many places. So, when I first developed this show, Long Story Short, I wasn't actually quite sure where I was going to set it. Like, if you notice in the first episode, they don't actually say where they live. But I guess I realized at some point I had to make a decision. And I was working with my friend, Lisa Hannawalt, who does the artwork for the show and did the artwork for BoJack Horseman, is a long friend of mine. So when I grew up with in Palo Alto, and when she started designing the world of the show, she started drawing these Eichler houses, which is the kind of houses that we had up in Palo Alto. And I think just by nature of the way she was drawing things kind of influenced me to go, yeah, that's where this show should be.
Yeah, I mean, you said you want everything to feel real, and I think that was the case for BoJack, despite all of the talking animals and everything. In this show, it is much more literally real. It's a there are no talking animals in this one. You can't fall back on animal puns quite as easily as you were able to on BoJack. So was that a consideration too of wanting to do something that felt like that?
Grounded world, not just because of the talking animals. I think there's like a level of meta commentary or irony that exists in BoJack Horseman that I kind of stripped out of this show. This show is really more, I guess, on the level. If that makes sense. I think that like BoJack is a show that like knew it was a TV show, even though, the characters didn't know they were on a TV show, but they would say things like, I got all these spaghetti strainers in my house. I don't remember why, but I'm sure the payoff is going to be pretty big, right? Like there were jokes like that, but the nature of narrative.
Very aware.
And kind of the cartoon world in which they were living in. And this show doesn't have those. And I think part of it is I was attracted to the challenge of like taking that tool out of my tool belt. I think it's a little bit, for me at least, riskier to write something without quite that level of irony or eye rolliness to it. I think there's kind of a safety or an armor in saying things out of one side of your mouth while the other side saying, yeah, but we don't really care about any of this stuff. I think this is a more vulnerable show in that way, in that it's saying, yeah, we care about this stuff. I don't think there's no ironic, sardonic escape hatch.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Having watched it, I think, you and I are almost exactly the same age. We're both Jewish. We have very similar references. So I felt like I was already sort of like on the page of this show. But then as soon as I saw how you were playing with time and jumping around in time, that's when I really connected to it. I think it's so perfectly illustrated by the use of that Paul Simon song, Obvious Child, I believe in the first episode.
Yeah.
Was that something, it feels like maybe there were other songs you could have used there, but that one feels so perfect. Was it difficult to get that song? Did you have to reach out to Paul Simon yourself?
Difficult. We spent a lot of money on it.
Yeah, that's what it takes.
Yeah, that was like, we knew this was going to be our most expensive needle drop of the season. And I think we thought this is a priority. Like we want to spend the money on this.
What was it about that song that you felt like it had to be that one?
Well, they talk about it in the episode, and I feel like it's so cleanly conceptualizes the way the show works and kind of some of the big ideas behind the show. I felt like a really helpful introduction to our audience of kind of what this show is going to be about, right? They talk about in The Obvious Child, the way the story moves forward in time very quickly. The story that I don't want to say Paul Simon, because perhaps it is a character that Paul Simon has devised. But the way he is telling the story to his life and his child moves very quickly through time, almost astonishingly so. And that always struck me as a listener and a fan of Paul Simon. That song has long been a fascination for me. I think it's a beautiful song. And I thought it would be a nice way to kind of explain to our audience what we were doing, to have a character talk about that song in the same way one might talk about the show itself. Because our show, I don't know if we said it yet in this interview, the show jumps around in time, right? And the show is all about the ways that time happens maybe more quickly than we expect it to. One moment you're young and carefree, and the next moment you've lived a life. And so to kind of prepare the audience for that, or suggest, put that on the audience's mind, felt like a very helpful thing to do when watching the show.
Yeah, the show, long story short, follows this family, the 2 parents and 3 kids. There is a very sentimental aspect to it in terms of jumping around in time, where you're having these memories and realizing, that this kid that you're seeing as a kid all of a sudden is an adult with all these problems. Do you feel like, I know you've had children since you made BoJack. I've also had 2 kids since we had that original conversation in 2016. Thank you. How much does that play into it? Because in a way, I felt like I'm not sure that someone who doesn't have kids could make the show in the way that you've made this show.
Yeah, I don't know, could, but I think wouldn't, right? Yeah, I'm interested in different things now as a parent than I was when I was not a parent. And I think having kids really made me reflect about my own childhood in a new way, and very actively think about what I wanted to give my children that I got, and what I wanted to not give my children. And I think it made me understand my parents a little better and some of the choices that they made. And I think all of that is going into the show. I mean, the show is very much about family and one's role in the family, and the idea of being a son and a brother and a father and a husband, or a sister or a wife or a daughter, and kind of how we are all of these things, and we kind of shift to different roles depending on who we're around or how we're feeling, and the way that even as adults we can be transported back to our childhood selves, with the in a moment.
The show is very much full of jokes at the same time, but it does have this emotional. Yeah, it is very funny. Yeah,
conversations I had about the show don't only see just how funny it is. So I get very serious when I talk about it.
Yeah.
It's a silly cartoon.
You might not know from this conversation. Yeah. But it is very funny. But I was going to say it has this. It's doing a very interesting thing with tone, where it's has full of jokes and it's very funny, but it has this very emotional effect that almost reminded me of something like This Is Us, which is like a very explicitly tearjerker kind of show. I know you've referenced the end of 6 Feet Under, which you said that was a show that you didn't actually watch. You only watched the end, which that baffled me.
I still was very moved by the ending. Incredibly evocative. Yes, I'm sorry. Were you gearing up for a question, or do I?
No, I mean, I was just talking about tone and figuring that out. I think that was something that was very important to BoJack too. Yeah,
I think that I think people who know me know that I can be very sentimental, and I think sometimes I project that sentimentality, as I said before, with an armor of irony or sardonic japery. But I tear up at Hallmark commercials. Like I really, I have a real soft spot, and so I wanted to indulge in that a little bit. And I think even the comedy, a lot of the comedy in the show comes from a comedy of people feeling feelings.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you've also talked about how jumping around in time is almost like a trick to get the viewers invested in the show more quickly than they would otherwise. And I thought about that in the context of sitcoms, which often take a long time to get good or as funny as they end up getting, because you need to really know the characters to understand why they're behaving that way.
It's not even that they need to get better. It's that the audience needs to catch up with what they're doing and fall into those rhythms. And also the writers and the actors, need some time to fall into those rhythms too. But I think about what are the most successful comedies in streaming? And we know the answer. It's like The Office and New Girl and Friends, right? These shows that didn't start in streaming, that started on broadcast and accumulated hundreds of episodes. And I think a big part of that is because we as an audience like to spend time with characters that we know, and we like to kind of be with these people over time. And I think if you're, greenlighting 8 to 10 episode seasons, 2 to 3 years apart from each other, and then, cancel it after 2 to 4 seasons, you're just not going to accumulate that kind of audience attachment. And so my hope was, on a maybe somewhat cynical level, be under this new model that we're all making television in now. Is there a way to get that audience attachment faster? And can we make our audience feel like they know these characters and they're part of this family after 10 episodes as opposed to 100 episodes?
Was that actually part of the pitch to Netflix?
Well, no, I didn't tell them your model is stupid. Here's how I'm going to fix it. But yes, I think that was some version of that. It was that we want to really know these people quickly. We want this to be a family that people fall in love with, despite their myriad flaws, despite their many flaws. That by seeing these people as youths and then also adults, we're going to just be more tapped into their vulnerability. We're going to understand why they're doing the things they're doing. We're going to feel like we knew them a lifetime, much like that ending of 6 Feet Under, which is the only thing I ever saw. Right. Or I remember when Mad Men was ending, there's a commercial where they put together a little montage of Mad Men through the years. And I was like, this is almost as powerful as the show itself.
Yeah.
This is like to see little Sally grow up before my eyes. This is pretty incredible.
I think you've gotten some of the best voice performances out of actors on your shows, as any animation that I've seen. And I think the show is no exception. So I wanted to talk about casting a little bit and then, developing these characters with the actors. You have Paul Reiser and Lisa Edelstein as the parents. I thought, they're both great, but Lisa Edelstein in particular, I thought was a total revelation. I know her a little bit from stuff, but she really transforms into this character of the mother.
She's kind of fantastic. She's very fantastic. I don't want to qualify with kind of. I think I feel like, especially if you know her mostly from House or from more dramatic or lightly comic stuff, although she's done a lot of comedy, this feels a little like a revelation. Like it feels like she's playing in a different gear here, and it's really delightful to experience.
Yeah, and then the 3 children in the show who play, the characters through all the ages, Ben Feldman, Abby Jacobson, and Matt Renfried.
I don't want to shortchange any of them. Lisa's fantastic. They're all fantastic. Paul is fantastic too. The kids are fantastic. one thing that became apparent to me pretty quickly, at the first table read is, we have a table full of actors here who all could, and in many cases have, headlined their own comedy series.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right. So these are all-star comedy actors, and they're playing at the top of their game, and it's just so fun to let them bounce off each other. And you can feel that energy, at the table reads before anything is animated. When they're looking at the scripts for the first time, just their instincts are so dead on, and it's such a delight to write for them because they're going to make it sing whatever you do. Like, you can do stuff that's like maybe a little weirder or a little more out there. They're going to nail the emotional moments. They're going to nail the funny moments. They're going to find the humanity in some of the, more awkwardly syntaxed jokes. They're going to find the humor in some of the straighter lines. It really is a pleasure to have such a talented actors to write for.
So you've said that you don't like talking about yourself. You've also said that the show is not particularly autobiographical, or is not about your family.
You have a question.
Yeah, and yet, well, one was, I was curious, what does your family think of the show? Have they seen it? Do they feel seen by the show?
They love it. I mean,
my family's incredibly supportive, so I think they would love it no matter what. Or they would tell me they loved it no matter what. But I think they're very proud, and I think they enjoy the stuff that feels like it's connected to us, and they enjoy all the ways they just thought about us. Clearly, I think they're really enjoying it.
As you've been doing, interviews and reviews of the show and everything, I think the press has been very focused on the show being an explicitly Jewish show. And that's what a lot of the conversation has been around. I'm curious what you make of that. If you feel like that's coming from you, or is that being put on you in the show? Does it make you uneasy at all that that's the theme that has really been so dominant in the coverage of the show?
I mean, I think it's okay if it gets people to watch it. I think if it makes people not want to watch it, then I don't like it. But I don't know, and I think I think the Jews are very excited to have a show that feels Jewish. And I think for a lot of Jews, the show might feel Jewish in a new way, or feel specifically Jewish in ways that other shows have not. Perhaps subtly, the ways that non-Jews might not even realize. And so I think we are very excited about that. Right. And I wouldn't begrudge any Jew from telling their Jewish friends, hey, watch this show. It feels very familiar. It feels very nice. I like that. I do worry that when that is the headline, it might turn off people who are not interested in that, or who think that they have to be interested in that in order to understand the show. So I think the show,
or that they have to be Jewish to understand the show,
right? Or they have to be Jewish or interested in learning about Jewish things,
right?
Or particularly fond of Jews. You don't. It's a family show, and in the same way that you can watch My Big Fat Greek Wedding without being Greek. Or Everybody Loves Raymond without being Italian, or Frasier without being a fan of the opera. I don't think you're not going to get all the references, but that's okay, right? You could watch BoJack and not know anything about the differences between an agent and a manager, or what points on the back end means. You would still get 90% of what's happening in the show. That's true here too. So I just want to say, if you are not interested in Jews at all, don't let that stop you. And then I also think on the other side, I worry that when a show becomes defined in the public imagination as being representation, or about a minority or about a group, then even well-meaning people who might want to watch it, it becomes like homework for them. Or they feel like, oh, right, I gotta watch that show. And they never do, because it doesn't feel like a fun show that they're going to enjoy. It feels like a show that they need to watch to be a good ally. And so I wouldn't want that to be the headline on the show either. But I also feel like I can't really control any of that. So I don't know. I'm happy to talk about the way the show deals with time and family. and identity. Because I think it's rich in a lot of ways, but I do understand why the first thing some people want to talk about is the Jewish stuff, because it does.
Yeah, well, I was curious the way you said that it does it, and it talks about or depicts Jewish people in a different way than some other shows have. What were you thinking about when you said that?
Well, part of it is it's a Jewishness that's specific to my experience, right? And I think that, as with any group, there's diversity within that group, which I think we all can understand, right? No two Muslims are the same. No two Mexicans are the same. Like we are all different and individual. And I felt like a lot of the stories that I had seen about Jews either focus on very secular, perhaps cultural Jews, right? People who identify as Jews, but it's not so much about the religion as much as it's just about bagels, right?
Yeah. Well, that's sort of the Seinfeld model, right? It's like, which is a show that was very much a Jewish show, I think, in a lot of ways, that then became the biggest show in the country. Right. So that tells you something too.
Not to demean any of these shows, right? I'm not saying Seinfeld or Curb Your Enthusiasm or any of these other shows are bad or not Jewish. I think they're very Jewish, right?
Yeah.
But I feel like that is a predominant representation of Jews. Or on the other hand, you see something like unorthodox, right? These super Hasidic black hat Jews, very, very from, and neither of those polls were quite my experience. And so I wanted to talk about Jews who were religiously Jews. And the other thing I really wanted to talk about and show is that I feel like a lot of the conversation about religion in this country is kind of framed through the Christian lens. Even without us really realizing it or knowing that's what we're doing. And I think particularly in that for Christianity, and again, not for all Christians, because there are all types, but I think a big part of Christianity and the way that it is expressed is through faith and through belief in God, belief in Jesus, believe in it, right? And I think that is not a part or as big a part of Judaism as I have known it, and is not the defining feature of what it means to be Jewish, even a religious Jew, right? Even the people who practice, who do the holidays, who keep kosher, it's not necessarily because we believe in God and we want to do the right things so we get into heaven. It's more about culture and history and tradition and community. And so to kind of show a religious family, an actively religious family where faith was not the defining pretext, that felt important and distinctive too.
I know the timeline of the first season ends before October 7th, 2023. Sure. I know you're now working on the second season and moving forward. Is that something you're thinking about of how do we address that in some way? Do you feel an obligation to, or?
I do in some ways. And it's something that we have talked about working on the show. It is not something that I have found a way to be funny or interesting about yet.
Right.
I will say that I don't want to do it out of obligation. And certainly this is a thing that is ongoing. It takes us about 11 months to make an episode. I don't want to say something on the show that I then regret.
11 months to make a season?
Yes, it takes 11 months to make a season. And right now, what's happening over there makes me want to scream. It makes me want to curl into a ball and get in bed. It doesn't inspire me to be witty or thoughtful or persuasive. And I don't know how to translate that into my show yet. Mm-hmm. And maybe we will, but that is not. But the politics, or the devastation, the death and destruction that is occurring over there in Gaza is not what my show is about, and I don't want to graft that on to my show to make it seem more important. I mean, I don't know if when we're talking about that, if centering a Jewish American family is the proper way even to discuss that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's something that I grapple with and I take very seriously.
So I want to talk a little bit about BoJack because I loved that show so much. And it's now been 11 years since it first premiered on Netflix, which seems kind of crazy. You were at a very different stage of life at that point. Yeah. I'm curious, looking back, how you think about the audacity that it took to create that show, pitch that show, make that show when you were barely 30 years old. You really took on the industry in a lot of ways, pretty intense ways.
It's kind of a wild thing to create a satire of Hollywood after I'd lived in Hollywood for a couple years and had even gotten like no jobs. Like, I feel like now I could really do well, yeah, you look at what now I understand how the town works.
You look at what Seth Rogen's doing with the studio. It took, he's like, took him a whole career to get there, and now he's really taking them on. But you did it right off the bat.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I think the secret to audacity sometimes is not understanding how audacious you are, kind of being stupid, I guess. Like, I didn't, people would tell me, this show's kind of weird, huh? It would seem like the most normal thing in the world to me. Like, I did not, it's talking horse, like from Mr. Ed, and like, what is he like behind the scenes? It was like the most natural thing in the world, right? We've all seen Who Framed Roger Rabbit. We get it. It's a mix of the cartoon world and the real world in Los Angeles. And so I think it did not strike me as particularly audacious or out there. I was lucky enough to find people who really vibed with what I was doing and wanted to help me do it.
The show was a huge success in so many ways, but I'm curious also, is there anything that you would change if you were starting over, if you were doing it now, in terms of the setup of the world or anything?
Matt, everything I would change. Yeah. Like, wait, is there anything you would change about things you did 11 years ago? Or do you think?
Yeah, I think so. No, that's perfect, actually.
Yeah. I mean, it's weird to, I don't want to say I have regrets because every choice I made has led me to here and I feel pretty good about where I'm at. Right. And I did the things that I thought I had to do at the time or thought were the right things to do at the time. And that was the person I was then, and now I'm a different person. But if I made BoJack Horseman now, yeah, it would be a completely different show. I think my interests are different. The ways I think about character and relationships are different. The ways I think about comedy are different. For better or for worse. And the landscape of television right now is completely different too. So then the context for that show doesn't exist in the same way. So it feels kind of impossible to go down hypotheticals or kind of cherry pick. Oh, what if I changed this detail? Because that was a moment of time for both me and the world, and this is a different one.
It does feel like there must be things from the show that you were satirizing or exaggerating about, in your world, Hollywood, that have come true in Hollywood. Are there things that you feel like you actually predicted with the show or can't believe, panned out the way that they did?
We get a lot of credit, I think, sometimes, which is not deserved, because I think we're just noticing things that are happening. And sometimes people don't notice them as fast as us, and they go, oh, they predicted the future, right? They were ahead of the Me Too movement. And it's like, it didn't take, an investigative reporter to notice that, like, some slimy eyes or accumulating a lot of power, or that Hollywood or a society was maybe a little too quick to forgive people. So I don't take any credit for that. No, I don't know. I mean, I think we were of our time. I'm proud of the work we did in that time. I think also, like, a lot of the structure of the show was, I think of it almost as like the first half of the show was us trying to distinguish ourselves from other animated comedies at the time, and kept trying to, that was the template. And we were saying, no, we're dark. This is an anti-hero show. This is interesting. And once we started getting attention for that, I feel like the second half of the show is us differentiating ourselves from dark, interesting anti-hero shows.
And just going sillier or going like...
Or like really putting that trope under the microscope a little more and trying to say something a little more interesting about it than what I thought maybe some of the other shows were doing at the time. I think maybe it's my own discomfort with being pigeonholed, perhaps, or I didn't want to get too comfortable. Oh yeah, so as soon as people started taking us seriously, I had to be like, but not that kind of seriously.
Are there examples of things that you learned on BoJack that you applied to Long Story Short?
Yes. I mean, I think part of the fun of BoJack was, in the pitch at least, was that we're going to slowly reveal what kind of show this is. That we're going to start as like a very goofy, broad comedy with maybe a few hints of the darker edges. But then over the course of the season, the audience is going to really understand. And what ultimately, I think that worked out for us. And I think BoJack was a successful TV show. But I think at least initially, what I did not anticipate is that people would not give us a full season. People would not give us the benefit of the doubt of like, oh, this is kind of funny. Let's see where it goes. And I think a lot of people still tune into that first episode and go, I don't get the hype. I don't think this is the show for me. And they don't know that it goes to other places. And so part of my goal on Long Story Short was I want to tell the audience what the show is as quickly as possible. I don't want to be coy about it. I want to hit the laughs. I want to hit the heart. I want to get the emotion. I want you to understand the time jumping element of it. I want you to know this family. I want to introduce you to as many characters in the first 2 episodes as I can. Really kind of understand what this is and where we're going and not try to be cute about it.
Yeah, it also reflects the difference in the level of content on Netflix when you started BoJack versus now, right? I mean, you were like one of a handful of original shows on Netflix when it started.
I think we benefited greatly from the fact that when we premiered, Netflix was putting out literally one show a quarter.
That's very significant about it, right?
Yeah, they were ramping up, right? And so we didn't have, and I think we also just happened to premiere at a time when other networks were not premiering new shows, just by luck of the calendar. So I think we got a big boost of attention that first season that if we were now, we would not get.
We're in this world where everything and anything seemingly can come back. Do you think about bringing BoJack back? Is that something that you would ever do?
Yeah, I mean, I'm focusing on this show right now. I mean,
yeah,
generally, I'd say I'm more interested in doing new things than revisiting the past. I think there would have to be something pretty scintillating about the prospect to make me want to go back to the world of BoJack. I think even then, I would do more seasons of BoJack Horseman, but maybe a new show in that world or with some of those characters. They would have to feel pretty different. And they would have to give me a lot of money. I think. Because it's not, I feel like I explored that world pretty thoroughly. But then again, I look at what King of the Hill is doing right now. And like, oh, that's interesting, right? Yeah, I think about the way that Daria spun off of Beavis and Butthead. It's like, oh, that's a totally different kind of show. That's really interesting the way they did that. And so I think there are possibilities and opportunities to perhaps do something a little different in this world. But then I also keep thinking but then why wouldn't I just do something different? Why going in to do something different in this world? But I don't know.
Especially, if you have the opportunity to do something different, like this show that you're doing now, then
so for you do. When the opportunities to do new things dry up, maybe I'll go back to the well.
So now it's time for our segment on the show called The First Laugh. So I'm going to ask you a series of questions about firsts.
Okay.
Starting with the first piece of comedy that you remember making you laugh really hard as a kid growing up.
Grover and the Waiter.
Oh, yeah. Sesame Street.
Yeah.
That was that's what hit you?
Yeah, Grover is such a funny guy. He really made me laugh.
And Grover is canonically Jewish? I don't know. Is that true, or am I making that up?
I don't think so.
What about the first time that you knew that you were funny, that you could make other people laugh?
Ooh, that's a good question. I feel like I didn't really self-identify as funny for a while because I always had friends who were funnier than me. And even now, like I look back and go, why am I a professional comedy writer? And some of those kids I went to school with that were so funny are like working in software. I don't understand it. But I guess I was interested in comedy, but I remember thinking like, well, I may be like a weird guy. Like that's my thing. So I can't be the funny guy. I'm more of a Gonzo than a Fozzie. But I feel like by high school, I understood that like I could make people laugh, if not earlier. And I liked, I did the Palo Alto Children's Theater. I liked being in plays and getting the laughs. You know what? I remember I was in maybe 6th grade. I was in a production of Cinderella, not Rodgers and Hammerstein or Disney. It's like a straight non-musical Cinderella. And I was like the prince's footman. And I had 2 lines. And I put on this really funny voice for it. And I got laughs off of it. And the lines were just like, there was a pumpkin. I've never seen a pumpkin in the Royal Garden before. But I really like stretched it out and hammed it out. And like the audience laughed. And the director let me do it, even though it was maybe a little distracting. Mm. And it was like, that was like a real light bulb for me. It's like, oh, I can make things funny that aren't funny.
Yeah. You have not done a ton of screen acting in your career, but I did see you have a credit on IMDb. Your first TV credit is in Children's Hospital.
Yeah.
So I was curious about that. How did that happen, and what was your experience doing that?
How did that happen? Well, that was a show that I think was very interested in bringing in comedy people in small parts here and there. And I think I was a young comedy person at the time. And one of the producers like knew me, and he said, do you want to come in and do this thing? And I was like, yeah. And it was terrifying. So I was just like, it was my first time on a real set. It was like costume and hair and all of that. And it was very nerve-wracking. And then to see the actors who are people that I'd seen on television, and they were all very friendly, and they would start conversations with me, and I would just kind of like glare at them and go, I was a mess. And you would never know it from watching the episode. I think I had like one line. But it was tremendously exciting for me.
We often ask actors on this show about their audition experiences.
Yeah.
And I was curious from the other side of things, on the creator side, is there a first audition that you saw someone give that really blew you away or was particularly memorable in some way, watching somebody audition?
That's a great question. Because I did a fair amount of acting in high school and college, and I did do some professional auditions out of college too. I always hated it. I never got to a place where I felt like this is part of it and it's fun. I think some people kind of build up that armor, but I was like, I don't want to do this. And so I still enjoy acting when like my friends will ask me like come in and play on their shows. But just the grind of like the rejection and the
yeah.
And I do think being on the other side of the table really did give me some tremendous insight about it, in that a lot of times you have fewer jobs than qualified applicants, right? Whether that's writers or actors or anybody. And so a lot of time you're rejecting people that probably would do a great job. But it's not that they're bad. And I think I always took every rejection personally of like, oh, I screwed up that interview, or I really blew that audition.
Yeah.
And so, sometimes I might have, but generally probably it's like, oh no, they found another person who was like, they liked a little bit better, or, fit this certain box that they were trying to fit at the time. This person was like a little bit taller, or this person had some experience that connected to the character that I didn't have. And so it was just a little bit more right for this job. And so I think, what I would want to tell any actor, and I think the pros know this already, but I always think it's helpful to remember that rejections are not like rejections. It's just,
Yeah.
And
I have hired people much later for different jobs after having seen them for something else. So sometimes people do really impress me. They go, I don't think they're quite right for this, but I'm going to remember that person. And I don't think I always understood that that's how it worked before I was on the side of the table.
Is there anyone you did hire either later or for the job that they came in that you were just like, couldn't believe how good they were or right they were for that thing, or just did something that surprised you? Or
I don't know if I have a good answer for that. Oh yeah, we had Gabourey Sidibe was on BoJack, and we originally brought her in because we the actress who played Sextina Aquafina couldn't come back, and we needed a new actress to play her. And I thought, Gabourey Sidibe is hilarious. Let's bring her in. And I didn't want to hamper her with the direction of like do an impression of the way it was played before. So I was like, do your own thing. What do you think is funny? And she did this performance that was so funny and so great. And I was like, this is amazing. And we sent it to Netflix, and they were like, why does this character not sound at all like the way she did it for?
wait a minute.
Our audience is going to be confused by this. And I was like, yeah, you're right. And I didn't want to go back to her and be like, remember that thing I said I wasn't going to make you do? Could you do that now? And so we brought in a different actress, Danielle Gaither, who was very funny, but did a closer match to what it was before. But then I brought Gabourey back for the next season to play a different character. I told her this whole story. I just like, oh, I'm so glad you told me that, because I just assumed I was fired. Like nobody called me to tell me that you were going in a different direction. Like I just thought I did a bad job. I was like, no, you were so funny. Yeah. But I realized like, oh, people don't always know that.
Do you have a story or memory about the first time you met one of your really big comedy heroes, just someone who you looked up to in the comedy world and getting to meet them?
So, I got to meet a lot of people on BoJack Horseman, and I really, I'm like in my story of Children's Hospital, I feel like I grew up a thick skin pretty quickly of not getting starstruck by people. Like it's I didn't have time for it. Like you got it,
Well, you were the boss too, right? So awkward if you were starstruck.
We had work to do. And like, Will Arnett was like a huge comedy hero to me, right? But I was like, no, we got to make the show. I got to make him think that I'm in charge here. But there were so I met like Oscar winners and really people I've been fans of all my life, and I was not fazed by them. But there were a few people that just like cut to the heart of me in some ways, and I'm still not quite sure why or what the difference is. I think some of it is people that like really had like a big effect on my childhood. Like Weird Al Yankovic was like kind of huge for me and like made me feel things I was not expecting to feel. And like now I'm like on his Christmas list, and he sends me like an email on my birthday, and I'm like, this is weird. It does. I love you. Thank you for doing this. I'm not mad at you for seeing me, but I feel like I should not be seen by you. And he's such a sweetheart. And then another example, I don't remember BoJack was Stephen Colbert. And he was on the show twice. And he was like the sweetest, funniest guy. And I was just so awkward. I just felt so uncomfortable through no fault of his own that I had to kill off the character. I was like, I can't. Oh, no. We can't bring Stephen Colbert back again because it gives me heart palpitations.
Yeah. Meanwhile, he thinks he got fired because he screwed up.
Yeah. He thinks like, well, I thought I did a pretty good job on that BoJack Horseman show, but they never had me back again.
Well, he'll have some free time coming up, so maybe you can work with him again, or you're not going to.
I would love to.
Be too intimidated,
like from a distance, maybe. Maybe now I feel like I could do it. I think I could be cool with him now. I feel like I've gotten there.
The last question we ask on the show: is there a story or memory from your career that makes you laugh now, but really was not funny when it happened?
Oh, that's a great question. I wish I had an answer ready to go, but I also have to think about what I can share. But then a few jump to mind. I'm like, no, I probably should tell that story.
Those are the ones we're looking for. The ones that you say.
I know you are. But how does that help me?
It doesn't, to be honest. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I feel like most of the things that are jumping at me aren't particularly funny, but they are about how seriously I took things that I didn't need to. Right? Like I remember when I was younger, I was in this comedy group, and just everything was so serious, and like every show was our potential big break,
And every time we misremembered a line or someone butchered a line that I wrote, I got so mad about it. Or if people didn't like my ideas, I was so, why can't you see this is funny? It's just, your thing is not funny. My thing is funny. It's like the level of intensity that now seems like very cute. It's not really a funny story. But that's kind of where I look back and I go, oh, weren't we adorable? Where this was like the most important thing in the world, that like we nailed this, show that nobody who mattered at all came to see.
But do you feel like that intensity helps you now, or have you had to kind of back off of being so?
No, I mean, I do think I honed my comedy chops in a way. I do think that intensity, like, was the crucible by which I'm the comedy writer I am today, and it allowed me to relax a little bit, and with the faith that I have like honed those instincts. Like I remember we went to we used to do like college festivals when we were in college, my comedy group, and we had this like we wanted to be tough at these college improv and sketch festivals where we would roll in these like wearing suits. And they weren't nice suits because we were putting out like 20-year-olds, but I think I remember thinking like, we're going to be like the mean team from the Mighty Ducks. That's going to be our persona.
What's your vibe?
We're going to intimidate the competition. And there's no competition. It was like improv people. Like everyone wanted to have a good time. Yeah, we kind of beat it with our arms crossed. We wanted to be the best. We were so, and like, definitely people clocked it at the time. They're like, these guys are fucking weirdos. We were way too intense about it. But on the other hand, I think that intensity did hone me.
Well, I think your dedication to comedy really shines through in all of your work that you've done since, and including this new show, which, as I said, I just love, and I hope that more and more people check it out. So, Raphael, thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you.
It's great to see you. Maybe we'll get to hang out in San Francisco again.
See the old haunts.
Yeah. All right, man. Thank you.
Good talking to you. Take care.